So Raquel, are we good?
You're up, Randy.
All right, guys. Hey, I want to welcome everybody today to the our second small business forum that is put on by the Greater Port Arthur Chamber of Commerce. Uh, First and foremost, I want to recognize the chamber staff of Pat, Paige, Joe, and Raquel. And we also want to thank our panel today. We have a little extended version from our first one from 2 weeks ago, back on April 30th, which was a success for our first one. We have an extended panel today and a few more that will be speaking. And we hope that the topics we cover today are beneficial for not only yourself, but for your business and for your staff. So we still want to give our kudos to the Port Arthur Chamber for being up and available and providing information continuously to the members. So, give yourself a round of applause, everybody at the Chamber. Y'all have done a great job being there for our people. So my name is Randy Sonyer. I will be moderating today, and Stuart Salter is also assisting me today, and I want to thank him for being a part of this. So we'll get going. We have a lot of topics and some questions at the end. Last time we had 2 speakers. We have 5 speakers today to give you some more information. So the first one I want to introduce is Blaine Callier with First Financial Bank, and he is going to discuss the PPP loans process. So Blaine, please go ahead.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for allowing me to speak. 2 weeks ago, we spoke about the PPP loan and how to apply for the PPP loan and what all documentations you needed to gather up in order to apply. Today, I want to talk more about the people that have obtained the PPP loan, what to do with the money, talk more about the forgiveness process, how to apply for forgiveness, and so forth. A couple of things I do want to point out is regarding the forgiveness, just like when we were getting ready to start doing these PPP loans, we are still waiting on definitive guidance from the SBA on how the forgiveness is actually going to take place. So everything that we're talking about today with the forgiveness is just articles that we've read that's been put out from the SBA and from the treasurer and different sources, but they're not the final guidelines. We think we have our head wrapped around them, but they are subject to change. To get started, what to use your loan proceeds for. So that everybody's heard of probably the 75-25% rule. At least 75% of your loan proceeds have to be used on payroll related cost. When I say payroll related cost, I mean your payroll along with your retirement and healthcare benefits can be included in that. You can use 100% of your loan proceeds on payroll costs, but at least 75% have to be used on payroll expenses. You can use up to 25% of your loan proceeds on your rent reimbursement that you're paying rent on for your facility. You can expense your mortgage interest, and you can also expense your utilities cost. There are still some unclarity on what exactly they mean by utilities cost. What I'm telling all of my people is I would just keep, and I'm telling them this about everything, is keep good documentation on everything that you're spending money on, whether it be your cell phone bill, your energy bill, obviously your payroll, all of your benefits that go along with it. You want to keep, you always want to keep good documentation and track things good, but if you got the PPP loan, you want to make sure you're tracking everything and just keeping good records of everything. Therefore, when we have the final guidance, if the final guidance comes out and they say, hey, you can count your insurance as a utilities, you can make it go back and count that in. One thing I do want to mention that a lot of people have kind of not forgotten about a little bit is there's a lot of banks out there that are doing loan deferrals. So if for example, if you have your office and it's financed through a bank and you do a 90-day deferral, which means you pay no interest, you pay no principal and interest for 90 days. You cannot expense your interest payment since you're not paying it. So it's something to think about.
Be incurred.
Regarding the forgiveness portion, it is up to number one, this is not a grant. This loan can be forgivable, but it is not automatically forgivable. The borrower has to apply for the forgiveness. 8 weeks, I should have mentioned that as far as the use of the loan proceeds. The use of the loan proceeds starts from the day you get the loan for the next 8 weeks. After your 8 weeks is up, that's when you can go back to the bank or the lender that granted, did your PPP loan for you, and you can apply for forgiveness. You're going to be required to turn in verification documentation on all of your expenses, including your payroll for the last 8 weeks, who you paid, the number of employees you paid, your rent expense, mortgage interest, utilities cost, everything like that. The first round of forgiveness should be taking place within probably the next, I think the next 3 to 4 weeks. You should start seeing that 8-week period come up. So I would guess within the next couple of weeks, we will see some more guidance from SBA on, exactly how the forgiveness is going to work. A couple of things to keep in mind is you want to maintain your staffing levels and make sure your compensation levels stay the same. Again, like I said, 75% of your loan has to all go towards payroll. If not, you need to be prepared to pay it back. Make sure your payroll costs are capped at $100,000 on annualized basis for each employee. Therefore, if you have an employee who makes $240,000 a year, they need to be capped at $100,000 a year. Self-employed, sole proprietors, independent contractors, their maximum forgiveness is $15,385. You will owe money if you use this PPP proceeds on other expenses other than payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, utility payments over the 8 weeks. If you do not maintain your staff and payroll, you will owe money. Your loan forgiveness will be reduced if you decrease the number of full-time employees' headcounts. Level of payroll, the same thing. You must keep up the same payroll. Linda will go into more detail about there's several, out of everything I've said, there's probably 100 questions per each topic that everybody has, and a different question that comes up. And Linda will kind of give it a little more clarification and break it down even further. I've had a lot of people ask me if I have an employee that doesn't want to come back, how do I go about paying them, or can I rehire someone? And the answer to your question is yes, you can rehire someone. Don't just divvy out their payroll on the other employees. You either need to rehire someone or don't pay anyone. If you don't pay anyone, just keep that money aside, and when you get ready to apply for your loan to be forgiven, you can just pay that money back. Because there are going to be some instances where, let's just say if your PPP loan was $50,000, and by the time you apply for it, they may say, we're going to forgive $45,000. If that's the case, you need to be ready for the money that was not used for payroll to pay it back at that time. There are some, I'll let Linda talk more about the EIDL loan and how that kind of commingles with the grant portion, and how the forgiveness works also. If you receive a grant, the EIDL grant, because a lot of people applied for the PPP loan, and at the same time they applied for the EIDL loan / grant. They got their PPP loan pretty quickly, and then maybe a couple weeks later they got their EIDL money. Maybe it was a couple $1,000s. That grant portion on the EIDL will be subtracted from the forgivable amount of the PPP amount. So If you have a PPP loan for $100,000 and you also got a $10,000 EIDL grant, your PPP loan is only going to be forgiven by $90,000. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Linda, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions at the end.
Thank you, Blaine.
Okay, our next up will be Linda. Let me introduce you there as Lamar State College Small Business Development Center. So talk about some of the disaster loan information there, Linda, and I appreciate you being on our panel today.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to cover, I talked to Blaine earlier today, and I'm going to cover the most common questions about the disaster recovery, things like the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. The most common question I have is that, okay, I've reopened my employees, I've called them back and they refuse to come back. They're making more money with unemployment. Maybe you were paying them $400 a week and they're getting $600 a week with unemployment and they refuse. And they say, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, the first thing you're supposed to do is go on to the Texas Workforce Commission website, and there is a site there, and you look for a document, it just went up this week, called Work Refusal Documentation. And you will go on to the Texas Workforce Commission, you'll look at employers, and under employers, you'll look at COVID-19, and you'll see work refusal document, and you'll fill that out and turn that in. Many of these employees, you need to tell them, if you refuse to come back, they will cut off your unemployment. So they better keep their job if they're really smart about that. Okay, next is, will I be given more time to replace my employees if they do refuse to come back to work? And the answer to that is no. If your employees do not want to come back, you need to actively start searching for people that want to work there at your place of business. And you need to get it back up to full-time equivalent that you had in 2019 on average. And they will not give you a grace period if your employees refuse to come back to work. So you need to really consider going out, beating the bushes, finding someone, bringing some people in to do some work. Some people said, well, I don't have enough work right now because I don't have enough business. Well, there's always something that can be done in a business. This is a good time to go and do some deep cleaning, rearranging, bringing them in, cleaning out the kitchen, cleaning out if it's a restaurant, a walk-in cooler, going and helping them, have them help you file papers, anything to get them in there working and get them paid. What if you decide you don't want the PPP loan? You've received it, you've received the money, you signed it, and some people will say, well, I've decided this is too difficult. I don't think I get my employees back. I just want to give it back. You can do that up till the end of the day today. You can give it back, no questions asked. You can return that money. But after today, there's going to be interest accumulated on that loan. So you need to start working towards what will you do if that happens. Okay, and this is one that a lot of people do not know about. Well, the IRS says that taxable income is all income from whatever source derived, and that includes forgiven debt. But in this case, it specifically states that the Paycheck Protection Program loan, if it is forgiven, it is not taxable income. But you cannot, I say you can't have your cake and eat it too. You cannot deduct those expenses that you use to get that loan forgiven. So for example, if you use $50,000 of payroll towards your forgiveness, you have to deduct that off at the end of the year when you're preparing your tax return, because you cannot deduct it on against your income on your income tax return. Let's see what's next here. Can you cut salaries? Many people have asked, well, I don't have much business. Can I just cut salaries? You know, they were making $15 an hour. I want to make everybody 12. I don't have much money right now. Well, no, if you cut salaries, like Blaine said earlier, you have to keep the pay levels about what they were before COVID-19 occurred. Hey, and Blaine did kind of cover what is included in payroll costs, but it is their wages, their health benefits, retirement benefits. If they had medical leave, you paid them for, vacation time. And once he said health care, but also it includes your Texas Workforce Commission taxes. And Blaine may say something later, but from the U.S. Treasury that I looked up, it does include the Texas Workforce Commission taxes you paid on those. Okay, he's already covered that you cannot include compensation that exceeds $100,000 for any individual employee. And you also cannot include your Internal Revenue Service quarterly taxes for Social Security, FICA, Medicare, that type of thing. That is not counted towards your total payroll for forgiveness. Now, whose responsibility is it to provide the documentation? And that is the business's responsibility. It's not the responsibility of the bank to go out and say, please bring me your documentation. They're not going to chase you down to be forgiven. You know, you have to ask for forgiveness, okay? The way it is in the real world and most times anyway. So you're going to have to do that. And so when you do that, the bank, Blaine has a wonderful spreadsheet that people can use, and it's as of today. You know, the rules may change, they may have to change it. But in the Small Business Development Center where I am, we're working on a sheet too, and I've looked at Blaine's, and I really like Blaine's sheet. And we can help. If you're having problems, the businesses out there are having issues, and they're saying, I don't know how to report this, I don't understand, call us, make an appointment, we'll help you fill it out. It is important to know that the SBA is still a moving target when it comes to the rules for forgiveness, okay? This was thrown at them suddenly without warning, and they've had to put an entire program together in a very short period of time. You know, in normal times, it would be like 2 or 3 years down the road, they would have this program put together instead of 2 or 3 weeks. And so they're going through the regulations, and they're going through them and making corrections as they find errors in there. And lastly, I want to talk about the economic injury disaster loan. That is the one that Blaine mentioned earlier about some people applied, but you know, they said 3 days. Well, we all know 3 days did not happen. 3 days came and went, and the money was not anywhere near us. The PPP loans happened much faster. So some people are still having questions. They're saying, I never received my economic injury disaster loan advance. Well, there's a lot of businesses that haven't, and some did. I cannot find rhyme or reason why some people received their money in 3 weeks, and some have been waiting 2 months, and they have not received anything. I did find this out, and I wanted to pass this little tidbit along, is that I had a client that did not get her advance, and she applied very early, the first day they were taking the applications. And so she is a small business, and she put the name of her business as it's listed at the courthouse. She's a sole proprietor. And she put down her bank account number, routing number, and it hit the bank and bounced back. And it did this because she decided to put all of her business banking into her personal bank account. So the name on the account did not match the name of the business. So if this is your case, that you don't have matching names on your account, you need to call the Small Business Administration disaster line, which you can go to the SBA, and it's a toll-free number, look it up, or call me, and give them your application number, and they will look it up and they can tell you. I will tell you that some of them are a little bit more helpful than others. Some will say, I don't have time to look it up. You just need to wait. Just hang up, call back again. You'll get another person that might be nice this time. So that's what's happened. Some people have called and said, we don't do that. And they'll turn around and call back, and they get the answer they're looking for. They find out what's missing. As of right now, the economic injury disaster loan, I thought I was going to be ahead of the game because they reopened for agricultural businesses. So the people that did not get their application in, I thought was wise, but apparently it wasn't. I told them, go ahead and apply, and you'll be in that pipeline when they get past all these agricultural businesses. And instead they received emails back saying, you're not an agricultural business, you can't apply. So don't think you can go in there now, like I thought, and get ahead of the game and have it sitting there waiting. If you're not an agricultural business, you cannot apply right now. And if agricultural businesses take all the money, then there will not be any left for those to come back and apply again, restaurants and retail shops. And also Blaine mentioned that I have received mixed messages that if you received an economic injury disaster loan advance, you are supposed to take, that is supposed to be reducing the forgiveness portion on the Paycheck Protection Program loans that Blaine was talking about. But I did have one SBA customer service individual who's a public information officer tell me, well, no, both are forgiven. I think that's wrong. So I've been advising my clients, save your EIDL advance. It's better to have it, and if you have to pay it back, than to find out later after you spend it that you need to return it. So put it to the side, and if something happens when they change this and they say, no, both are forgivable, then you can go have a party and go buy what you need at your business or whatever. So as of right now, that's where everything stands. And that's all I have. You can call me at the Small Business Development Center at Lamar if you have any more questions.
All right. Well, thank you, Linda.
Linda, I appreciate that. So next up on our agenda, it gives me pleasure to introduce Lauren Van Gerven from the Southeast Texas Workforce Board Skills, and she is working with the COVID-19 Special Initiative Program. So Lauren, I will give it to you.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So as a workforce development board, early on in this crisis, we were very much focused on layoff assistance as well as a large amount of employment claims that were filed. Now we're shifting our focus more towards people returning back to work, as well as some of these training grants that we have available. So Linda touched a little bit on the returning to work part, but I do want to go into a little bit more detail on that. As Linda was saying, employees don't simply have the right to refuse to return back to work. So for example, the excuse of saying, I currently don't feel safe returning to work is not a valid excuse and is not a protected excuse to retain your benefits. There are a list of excuses that are valid, and an employee who refuses to return to work will be protected if it falls under one of the following categories. That's if the employee or a household member is over the age of 65, if the employee or a household member has recently tested positive for COVID-19 or has been required to quarantine, and also if the employee is unable to find suitable childcare for their child, school-age going child. But again, we do encourage all of the employers to report any employees that have refused to return to work. As Linda mentioned earlier, currently with that extra $600 a week that people are receiving on unemployment benefits through the end of July, a significant amount of people are currently getting more money on unemployment than that they were while working. So of course, we want to encourage people to go back to work as soon as possible. If not, by the time that extra $600 ends, we'll see a significant amount of people suddenly trying to enter the workforce again. And at that point, it will be very much an employer market, but it will be challenging as, of course, not all jobs will return at the same time. So again, for any employers wanting to report any of the employees that refuse to return to work, that can be done through the TWC website. That's twc.texas.gov. And there is an employer page that you can see on the top of the homepage, and that will bring you to the form that needs to be filled in and submitted. So shifting towards training funding that we have available, TWC recently received $10 million in training funding that can be distributed in forms of grants between the amounts of $50,000 and $250,000 per grant. There is a priority given specifically for companies that have done any retooling to meet specific COVID-19 needs. Now, of course, that includes things that, for example, a manufacturing company that has retooled and is now producing PPE, but you can definitely think of it in a more broad way. So COVID-19 isn't just, the needs aren't limited to healthcare type things. Also now, for example, we're seeing a meat shortage. So companies that are doing things like food or even supply chain, they are very much considered a priority for these grants as well. Outside of the priority companies, any company that has been adversely affected by COVID-19 is able to apply. These grants are, they're a 2-page application, so a pretty simple application process. TWC has promised to process these grants within 72 hours, and then the money should be available within 30 days. So they're really going quite a lot faster than your typical training grant, not under one of these crisis situations. Let's see. You would work with one of the local colleges to create the training that you would need. There's a lot of flexibility as far as what type of training. A lot of that will depend on what is happening at your company. Again, things that are acceptable as well are, for example, there will be an increase in sanitation, sterilization. So if any employees need training on those type of things, that is also allowable under this grant. So like I said, between $50,000 and $250,000, and that's in increments of $50,000 that you would apply for these grants. And then I would like to share the contact information of the person at TWC who would be the grant manager for these funds, and that is Christina DeWitty, and she can be reached at 281-983-2667. So she would be the grant manager. However, the actual application can go either through the college that you are working with or through the local workforce development board. And that's what I have for now until there's any questions possibly.
Hey, Lauren, thank you for that information. Could you give that number one more time to everybody?
Yes, absolutely. That number is 281-983-2667. And if you would like to get in contact with our local workforce board here, that number is 719-4750.
Hey, Lauren, thank you very much. In fact, you touched on the topic about employees not wanting to come back to work on one of the questions we had. So thank you for doing that. I was going to reach out to you, but you saved me that opportunity. So thank you very much, and appreciate you being here today and part of our panel.
Thank you.
So next we have Kimberly Purnell. Kimberly's with the Southeast Texas Workforce, and she's working with as a child care contractor. So Kimberly, thank you for being a part of our panel today. And I want to introduce you and let you give your presentation. Thank you again.
All right, thank y'all so much for having me. I wanted to talk about childcare. We receive state and federal funds down to our area, which is Hardin, Jefferson, and Orange County, that we can help. And what we help with is childcare assistance. We can help any families that are working or going to school 25 hours or more, or a combination of the two, because sometimes there is folks that are married that are part of our program, as long as they meet the 50-hour requirement combined. Some may be going to school, some might be working. Maybe the husband's working 30 hours and the mom's working 20 hours. So that would still suffice. Also with that is income guidelines that they have to be under. Like, for example, a family of 3, they have to be under $3,750, and that is before taxes. Right now we do have a wait list for, unfortunately, but people are able to get on the wait list, and how they can do that is going to workforcechildcare.org. Again, that's workforcechildcare.org. It asks you 3 little simple questions, and then you can go into the application and get that entered, and that is submitted. Once that is submitted, then we have someone to data enter that information. You'll get a letter in the mail to let you know you're on the wait list. What's very important about being on the wait list is that it only allows you to be on there for 6 months. If you do not call and update your status stating that you still want child care assistance, it will take you off, unfortunately. So that's why we send out that letter. It is bolded and highlighted so that folks know to call by that date. Right now, our wait list is about 6 months to a year, but it sometimes changes from day to day or even month to month. What it is through TWC, who ultimately gives us the money from the state. They have a range that we have to keep of kids in care. So once we drop below that range, of course, we will outreach to those folks. And, it's just kind of a balancing act. So it kind of happens sometimes in spurts, sometimes it happens for a long period of time. It just depends. But we encourage parents to get on, to not feel discouraged. They can always call us for an update, and sometimes we have some good information to share with them. When we do outreach them, they will receive something in the mail, and then they submit it back to us, and then we determine them eligible if they are. Now, we do have some priority groups that folks need to know about. If you are a veteran, you are a priority group. If you are a former foster youth that is under the age of 23, you're also a priority group. Anybody that's temporary displaced, anybody that's in a homeless shelter or women's shelter, somebody that's living on somebody else's couch, they don't know where they're going to be living from day to day, they might be living in their car. Those folks are also a priority. And with those folks, there is some special requirements for them because they get to not come in with a job because of their situation. So they have 3 months to find a job. So that does help those folks. We can start their child care while they job search, and as long as they get a job within that 3 months, we can continue that care. Also, to anybody that is a teen parent is a priority. Anybody that has a child with a disability also too is considered a priority. Once all of our folks come in, there's a parent share of cost that is associated with the program, and that's based on their income. So what we ask for is 3 months of check stubs if they're working. That's pretty much all the income we take. We don't take any SSI anymore. Any more child support is not considered income. So mostly it's pretty much most of them, they just have their check stubs. So they submit those, we average those out, and that comes up with their monthly gross income. We do take into consideration all the income, but it's before taxes. So based on what that income is and how many in the household will depend on what their parent share of cost is that they will pay to their child care facility directly per month. It ranges roughly about less than 10% of their monthly gross income is what they'll pay. And they pay, like I said, that directly to their child care facility. The parents choose their child care facility that they want to go to. We usually refer them to the child care regulation website, which will have all providers that are listed in the state. And that, in case anybody needs to know that information, it is txchildcaresearch.org if you need to get to their website. But most providers in the area, we do have an agreement with. If we do not have an agreement with that provider, maybe it's new or they didn't know about our program, we do have a provider specialist on staff that can go and meet with them or talk with them on the phone and get the necessary paperwork so we can get that process so they can become a provider so that family can go to that child care provider. Also too, just some information too, is we do work with the providers also too. We have a program called Texas Rising Star that TWC has. We have several providers that are a part of this program. It is a voluntary program. They do get, basically they have a checklist of what kind of information they need to submit. There could be training hours, handbooks, those type of kind of administrative stuff. And then they are assessed by an assessor who's through the board, and she goes out to the classrooms and assesses what childcare interactions, how their routine is going, and they could be deemed either a 2-star, 3-star, or 4-star facility. With that comes enhanced rates for that provider, so they get a little bit more than our regular CCCS providers. So that is helpful. We also give them free training. We also are able to buy them equipment and support them also too with getting some training, certifications, even going to Lamar Institute of Technology to get their CDA, which is kind of the basis of them. After they get their high school diploma, they can go on to that and then get an associate in childcare if they like. And we are working on trying to help some of our childcare providers achieve that associate in childcare if they would like to attend Lamar University. Also, too, what's really been going on good with us new with this COVID is that we are able to put essential workers into childcare. This is new, been going on since about the first part of April. And there's income guidelines with this one, but it's also very high income guidelines. Like for example, a family of 4 that could be making almost $10,000 a month before taxes and they would qualify. So the income guidelines are very much higher than our low income. So we're able to help a lot more folks, especially if they're an essential worker. This is temporary funding, unfortunately, but it will last for 3 months. There is no fees involved with this. But what TWC is deemed as essential workers is anybody that's in pharmacy, anybody that's in healthcare. We got local and state government would qualify, restaurant or food delivery, first responders, anybody that is doing gas station maintenance or working in a gas station, childcare, healthcare, and any kind of other caregiver, which maybe they're a private healthcare giver. Any mail and delivery, of course, UPS, FedEx, those folks, and any military personnel would qualify. And they can go to our website, workforcechildcare.org, and it is about in the middle of the page, and it states that you are an essential worker, and I'm needing help with childcare. So they can fill that out. That gets routed to us, and we will call them within the next day basically, or maybe even that same day, and touch base with them because there is just a little bit more information we need from them. This is a self-attestation. They write down where they work, that they're under the income guidelines. Really no questions are asked. We have to believe what they're saying is true on the form. So we take that, we put them in childcare of their choice with no fees. We call the center and get them set up. So it moves pretty quickly. We try to get that done in 24 hours after we receive the documentation, if that's possible, if the parent knows where they want to go. Also, what start date they want to go for also too. So it's come in handy for a lot of folks, and it's helped a lot of folks in the area. And we are continuing to do that until we are notified by TWC that we do need to stop enrollment. But as of right now, we are continuing to do that. So encourage any of your folks that are working for you, or maybe a friend or relative, to apply, because it will help them out for the next 3 months, and that will be greatly appreciated by a lot of folks. And that's all I have today, unless there is any questions.
Hey, Kimberly, I really appreciate it. I do have one question for you myself. You were talking about the essential workers. So I have a lot of contract personnel that are, at a lower rate in some cases. In the oil and gas industry for the state of Texas is an essential workplace. So would that qualify also?
Yes, because we can use the, you're going to get the CISA list, and
Right.
oil and gas is on there.
Right.
So
Okay.
yes, we can
Okay.
help those folks. And like I said, there's a lot of folks that are qualifying that would normally qualify for the program. So it's some relief for them.
Okay. Hey, a lot of good information there, Kimberly. I appreciate you participating today and being with us. That's good information for our folks.
Thank you.
Okay, so next up on our list, I have Farhana Swati with Fallows International, and kind of covering the topics of the supply chain, what's available, where to get it, when can you expect it, and what's out there. So Farhana, I'll let you go for now.
Thank you, Randy. Good afternoon, everyone. So now that businesses are opening back up, it's important for employers to have an RTW plan for their workforce. So while there's not a one-size-fits-all approach, there are general precautions that businesses can take for a safe working environment we encourage all businesses that we work with to follow the guidelines of CDC and OSHA, as well as your city and state guidelines. So besides that, then you have your own RTW plan. So the use of PPE products is to manage your workforce, to create semblance of normalcy as we continue in the next phase of the pandemic. People, ask me questions on, well, what do you think is important? What type of products? What is the ingredient? So I would say anything that is fungicidal, antiviral is important to use to sterilize your working environment. I put out some products here for, I don't know if everyone can see, but so if you have, this is a local business company that we've been buying hand sanitizers, and I think Randy, you were the one that recommended them, EcoWorks. So 75% is alcohol, antiseptic. So if you have something like this that you can purchase and just put it in the smaller bottles, if you don't have a disinfectant spray like a Terminex, which is a Buckeye product that kills 99% of the germs, but this will do the job, then you just spray it on the surface or any place that's been in contact and leave it on for 10 minutes and wipe it off, or just let it evaporate. I think those are good measures of sanitation and sterilization. If you have a team or individuals that are responsible or tasked to do sterilization of your workplace, then you ensure that they have some type of policy in place that they are leaving those disinfectant products on for a minimum of 10 minutes. And the reason I said that is because I've consulted with several suppliers and manufacturers that either sell or make these type of antiviral products, and that is what they recommend. So then a lot of people have been faced with not being able to find Lysol in stores. So we offer different type of products that are equal to a Lysol aerosol, which is antiviral. Then you have your thermometers, your touchless thermometers that is important to have at the office in case you have someone. Generally for us in our working place, anyone that is a visitor coming in, we have their temperature checked. But every workplace is different. You want to have that in hand, especially if there is a concern of maybe someone has an illness. You have that. And then your Clorox wipes obviously are the best. They're hard to find nowadays, but we're able to source a lot of these from different suppliers. So that's one thing. Hand sanitizers, again, industrial wipes is a great item to have, because then you're just having a bulk supply. You put them on, we put them in the reception area, in the hallways, and people just grab them, go and wipe their phones. And another thing is, people in your workplace, people have their cell phones and have different equipment, calculators, laptops. You want to ensure that your policy, which probably did not enforce wiping all of those equipments down, that should be happening now. You should enforce that as a business. The basic guidelines are, 6 feet apart from each other. Avoid sharing those equipments like the cell phones, the laptops, tools, pens. We generally in the past probably have shared pens, and now we put a policy in place where, no sharing of pens, no sharing of laptops or things of that nature. Next to the printer, we do have these type of wipes. We have hand sanitizers and the sprays. So you just spray down the equipment after each use and before each use. So those are the kind of things that you can put in your RTW plan. And we have an abundance of products. There's other things like fabric masks, because the N95 mask is something that the 3Ms especially, something that was mostly for healthcare providers. Now industrial companies have requested those and have bought those, but there's a, in place of that, you can use the fabric mask or the Gator. There's all kinds of different brands, as long as they have a decent amount of layering of the mask and it is breathable. then it's okay to use in the workplace or in outside gatherings. And then they also, like I said, have the gaiters, which is breathable material, but it has a few layers in it. Then you can use those as well. Gloves is a big thing. So not every employee, I mean, working at their desk, you know, in isolation, they not required to use gloves. But once you're out and about in the meetings, then it's preferable to use gloves, especially if you go outside, run errands for your business, for your office space. So if you guys have any questions about the products, I'm more than happy to answer those, but I can also provide our office number if anyone needs to call and inquire about the PPE products or have questions about them.
Hey, Farhana, thank you. If you would, go ahead and provide that office number, please, for one.
Sure, 409-729-2401. And then you
All right.
can always reach me on my cell at 409-983-0044. You can call me, text me. I'm happy to answer any questions. It is encouraged that all businesses use PPE products. So I know that some offices have called us and asked, well, we are not able to get them and we only have a few people. So do you really think we need them? Is it a mandatory? And I don't think it's mandatory, but it is suggested and recommended. So I encourage that all businesses and offices do use them for their workforce.
Hey, Farhana, thank you very much for being on our panel today. And the folks that follow, they're a member of our chamber here in Port Arthur, have done a great job on supplying needs throughout the area. So give them a call. They will do their best to find that product for you. So thank you very much, Farhana. So Stuart, we're kind of getting into it. So with you being a small business owner, tell us what you're doing with opening your business and what your recommendations are to others.
In just a few minutes, I need a few of your items. But we are doing as many of in our industry are, where we're doing a soft opening. We're doing the A and B team arrangement that we talked about 2 weeks ago. We have A team who is here in the office and B operating from their homes, and that seems to be working for us right now. Our B team, some are a little less anxious than others to get back to work, but we'll cross that bridge as we come to it. I was given some tips to deal with that in our previous presenters. The social distancing issue, we've kind of beat to death. Everyone knows around 6 foot, but once you get into your office or your business environment, you can't necessarily maintain that all the time. You just do your best. And I guess that's something I really want to emphasize. You own and operate your business. It's yours. You get to make these decisions, and not the government, not anyone else. When trouble comes, the government's not going to step in to help you. So I look to myself and to the professionals that I work with on a daily basis to help me through this process. I trust their judgment, and I trust my own judgment to get this thing back up and running in a safe and hopefully profitable way. The things that have not changed is there's still family leave laws still into effect. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is still in effect, but we are still in Texas the word is lost. I've lost the word right now, but self-employment state. In other words, where you get to choose whether you wish to be employed or not, and the employer has that same right. So if we have employees that are having difficulty either wanting to come back to work or have the fears, my plan is to work with them as best I can, is all I can say at this stage. I did talk with an attorney earlier today on employment practices, and she did confirm that there are no new regulations from employment practices other than what have already been in existence. If you're looking for guidance, there's a wonderful tool at the CDC. You go to cdc.gov. It's a guidance for business response. I believe a few people touched on a few items, but it gives you a very detailed answer to your questions on what do I do to get my business ready to be up and running again. within my industry, within the property and casualty insurance industry, I would encourage people to get a hold of their agents. You've already paid them their commission. Let's put them to work. You made an estimate at the beginning of the year on your general liability based on what you thought your gross sales were going to be for the year. You probably are not going to make that number. So you can call your agent and ask them to do a midterm adjustment. You may get a little money back, or you may have your installments reduced, but or you can wait till an audit at the end of the term. But right now, cash flow is king, so I'm encouraging people to get a hold of their agents. Same thing applies to your workers' compensation. You estimated how much payroll you would have for the year. Very few of us are going to meet that payroll estimate. Call your agent, have them adjust it midterm, get some money back, or reduce your payments right now. Cash flow is king. Let's see here. They've already talked about the PPP loan issues relating to employees not coming back to work. Need to address it. Linda really was strong on making sure you get those payrolls out there if you expect to be able to be forgiven for them. Oh, in the risk management area. I know we're dealing with a lot of details, but we also need to keep mindful of the big picture. A business's reputation is extremely important. We found out here recently when one of our local politicians had some nail work done that just the smallest little decision can affect people's perceptions of both you and your business for some time. So people are sensitive to that right now. I would encourage people to, business owners to be mindful of that. Also be mindful of key personnel. There are probably people in your business, I know I have them in my business, that if they're not able to come to work tomorrow, it presents a real problem for me. And if they're not able to come to work ever again, I've got even a bigger issue. So I would encourage people to look at what your plans for to do if you did lose a key person in your operation. What would you do? Now's the time to think about that. And then also there's going to be some political and judicial risk associated with this whole process, and that will play itself out. I think small business owners are the advantage that we have is we are small enough to make immediate change, and we have the authority to make those changes. So I would encourage people to be light on their feet when it comes to business, and keep in mind that, you know, again, thankfully we have the Small Business Administration. We've got our banks supporting us in these transactions. We've got the Texas Workforce Commission. We've got all these wonderful resources, but ultimately the success of our businesses comes down to the operator. I hold myself responsible for getting the job done on a daily basis. I think all our chamber members do the same. The chamber provides the resources to help you get that job done, and we're here to do that. So I think that's about all I had right now, Randy. I'm sure we're going to have some questions though.
Yeah, we had 3 different questions I posed today to try to stay within our time frame. So there's one of them, we kind of hit on it. So let me just ask you straight out, Stuart. So what are your options if you're an employer or your employer wants you to come back and you're just not ready?
If as the employee, that's your right. You're not ready, you can say, I'm not ready. And your employer can say, I understand that. I appreciate it. You're no longer employed. Yep. There you go. That's between you and your employee. I mean, yeah. It comes down to everything. It's who's more valuable. Yeah. If that person's the only one in your operation that can do what they're doing, you probably want to be flexible. Yeah.
Yeah. It kind of gets into it where I think the word you're looking for, Texas, is a at-will state.
At will. That was the word I was searching for. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. So we're closing in on our hour. Once again, I want to thank our chamber staff, Pat, Raquel, Paige, Joe. You guys do a great job for the chamber. We appreciate you being there. Remember, this chamber has been here for 120 years, and they have been here since this pandemic started, and they will be here moving forward. Also want to thank our panel today, Blaine, Farhana, Lauren, and Kimberly, and my partner in crime, Stuart. I appreciate you being a part of this also. I do have one thing I need from the participants here today is provide us feedback. Give us a meeting feedback, how it went. What would you like to see on this topic of discussion for our next meeting? You know, we're here to serve you, so we can put this together and bring what we feel is needed, but we would like your feedback, and we'll do our best to provide that at our next meeting. So we want to thank you for your participation. And just remember, during all this COVID, yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose. So that's how we got to address this, moving one day at a time. Thank you all. Thank you, the Chamber. Everyone have a safe day.
Thanks, Randy.
Okay, so is everybody cut off from it, Raquel?
We cut off.
Yeah, you were muted there, Raquel, so we're cut off from the rest of the group.
I think she's got us all cut
No,
off.
we're not. We're still on. You want me to
Okay,
just-
good. No, we're good. I want to just thank you guys. I don't know who's there's still 22 showing participants on it. I want to thank them for participating and thank everybody at the Chamber for putting this together. I think today was a very good meeting. We wanted to keep it at an hour, so I have that we were 57 minutes, so we did really well on that. And Kimberly and Farhana and Lauren, thank you all for participating today. Really value your input today.
Yeah, I wanted. Am I on? Can you all
Yes.
hear me? Okay. I really thought it went well. Thank you all so much for participating. It was a lot of valuable information, and I particularly want to thank my staff and any members that are still listening as well. We've been through a lot. We've come through many hurricanes, and Southeast Texas is stronger than ever, and we will beat this coronavirus. So we appreciate you all. Thank you so much. We'll get together and let you know when our next Zoom meeting will be.
Okay. Thank you all.
All right. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.